Now, this breakdown is going to open your eyes to the power world like you've never seen it before. You will never look at the power universe or some of its characters the same again. To get the full picture, make sure you watch this video all the way to the end. However, I do want to begin by asking, who are the most important players in Power? Who took the Power game victory? Who exactly are the Power universe's most powerful individuals? Ghost, Tommy, and Conan are the usual suspects in my mind. In Power Book 2, Ghost, Tariq would be the word. Tommy and Diamond would be the names in Force. The CBI additionally, I believe that Shanti and Jernard are in the background having a very clever chess game. You would use Rack, the Thomases, and also Unique in raising Kanan. However, I wrote about Snaps and Pop a few days ago on X. Isn't that crazy, you ask? Within a season, Snaps and Pop have made their way into the Power Hall of Fame from the comfort of their bar or restaurant. While everyone else has been playing checkers, they have been playing chess. They control everyone, and their influence on the Power universe as a whole should not go unnoticed. This breakdown focuses on the Power Hall of Fame. How significant is Snaps and Pop's influence on the Power universe as a whole? From coaching and manipulating Kanan to introducing Breeze, a new possible alliance with Unique, and even how their influence may have reached Ghost and Tommy, and if you want to go one step further, Tariq Street Patrick. They are not merely supporting characters in raising Kanan, they are the puppeteers who set the stage for what we are about to see through Breeze, Tommy, and Ghost by pulling Kanan Stark's strings. Through various manipulative strategies, a lot of what we saw in Power probably came from Kanan's experiences with Snaps and Pop. In terms of manipulation, Snaps and Pop will likely have taught us a lot of what we'll see in Season 5 and Power Origins. We will also discuss some general ideas and hypotheses regarding their demise toward the end. Therefore, once more, adhere to this to the very end. However, let's take a step back and briefly examine Snaps and Pop's identities and the extent of their power in the game. In the 1970s and 1980s, Snaps and Pop were two retired drug lords who ran the drug trade in Queens. Although they claim to be retired, they are still involved, because the truth is that you never truly retire until you enter this kind of world. With connections to cops, suppliers, the Italians, and former associates like Ronnie Mathis and Defcon Stark, they are still feared and respected. We were made aware of how respected and intelligent they were from the moment we were introduced to them. Things like Pop giving Ronnie a hug that wasn't really a hug, but rather a pat-down to check for wires. Ronnie was the one who first introduced them to Kanan at the club. At that point, Pop and Snaps really liked Kanan, so they suggested that he work with Ronnie, similar to what we saw later when they proposed that he work with Unique. At first, all it was a way to make money. Don't take it personally, it's just business, they always say. And that was how Snaps first perceived Kanan. Everything was about business. They treated him like a separate individual from Rock, but also because they were aware that, in contrast to Rock, who is difficult to deal with, they could control someone like Kanan. Take a look at her business dealings, with Unique in Season 1, the Italians in Season 2, and Quan in Season 4, to see how difficult she has always been to work with and how difficult she has always been to Kanan. She came to Snaps and Pop as a result. Jukebox informed her that Kanan was with Bonnie and Clyde, but she did not want him near them because Rack knew who they were. However, it works either way. Pop recalled Rack jumping rope outside her parents' house as a young child. Not just Rack has a long and illustrious past. Snaps and Pop are intertwined, as previously stated. They have collaborated with significant players such as Ronnie, Defcon, and the Italians. Furthermore, the fact that they told Rack, "You ain't in our league," spoke volumes for us. You not only see them when you see them, but you also see who is standing behind them. Stefano was instructed to take a seat. You need a lot of power, influence, control, respect, and fear in order to convince someone like Stefano, who is connected to the Italian crime families, to back off. That ought to have indicated to us that they weren't just supporting characters. They were and are major players. They are at the top, despite the fact that they are retired. When you speak to us, you are simultaneously speaking to our ancestors, forefathers, and forebears. We developed the game. They really took Kanan under their wing in Season 4 now. He was seen by them as an investment. They were looking at him to see if he was worth doing business with in the long run. In a way, he was on probation. They discovered, however, that he was smart and ambitious over time. He could make a lot of money for them if they guided him correctly. In order to influence him, they wanted to catch him before he made mistakes. That's why they gave him advice without asking. We saw Pop and Snaps helping and mentoring him as they tried to set him apart from Rack and figure out who he wanted to be. Without Kanan realizing it, it was an interview. They were also safeguarding their investment. That meant killing Famous, his best friend. They had officers Pickett and WI kill him not only for their own safety, but also to safeguard their investment. If Fame had spoken to the police, it might have brought them to Kanan, which could have cost them everything. Crystal was killed by Pop later. This connects to Rack's earlier concern for Kanan, namely that Snaps and Pop didn't arrive where they are without dropping a lot of bodies. They are still willing to work with their hands. Once more, did you ever retire? They continued to manipulate Kanan. Kanan, Unique, and Breeze were mentioned as potential members of a formidable trio. They advise Kanan that the company he keeps has an impact. The heads around you are only as good as you are. And I concur. Consider the people you spend time with. Do your friends encourage you to do better or hinder you? We are all aware that Famous was not made for the streets. He was described as a clown. He spoke way too much. He was betrayed by OC, who worked for him. As a result, they attempted to form a partnership with Unique and Breeze and introduced Kanan to Breeze. That's a potent combination of Kanan, Breeze, who performed well in East New York, Unique, and Snaps and Pop's backing. With Snaps and Pop's connections and transportation, they could control the market. They've further strained the already strained relationship between Kanan and Rack by taking advantage of his need for independence and respect. They have basically made Kanan feel like he is his own man and separate from her. Although it appears to be independence, it is actually another form of manipulation. It was obvious to Snaps from the beginning. He said that Kanan's loyalty to his mother was questionable in episode 2. When he realized he could strike, he asked Kanan to join forces with Breeze and Unique. Having said that, let's now talk about how this all fits into the power world as a whole. How Snaps and Pop's actions affect the future of everything. We refer to Snaps and Pop's influence throughout the power universe as the cycle of betrayal and manipulation. That is the term that will be used frequently throughout Season 5, particularly in Power Origins. Take a look at their manipulation of Kanan in Season 4. Rack has already deceived him, so he doesn't trust him. He thinks that's why he thinks Rack killed Fame and Crystal. Pop and Snap gave it that appearance. He was informed that it was Rack. They made fun of the difficult relationship he had with his mother. They took Crystal hostage, obtained the information they required, and then got rid of her. We cut them loose in one way or another as soon as someone is no use to us. And they carried out exactly that. They knew that the body would be found because they knew exactly what would happen. Rock would be blamed. You witnessed Pop investigate Kanan and inquire about what he has done with that information. The cycle of betrayal and manipulation has an effect on the power world as a whole, because the manipulation and betrayal will come full circle. Kanan will eventually realize that Snaps and Pop are manipulating him. That will occur no matter when or how it happens. He will transition from being manipulated to being the manipulator when the truth is revealed. He is going to manipulate a young Ghost and a young Tommy in the same way that Snaps and Pop did with Kanan. We might see Breeze participating in the manipulation, or we might even witness him doing so. Power Origins and Season 5 are about to witness the crazy chain reaction that was started by Snaps and Pop. In response to a comment that I received recently, I mentioned a power mystery series that I started about 2 or 3 years ago. In one of those breakdowns, I said that I wouldn't be surprised if Kanan and Breeze killed Ghost's father to take control of him, because it was said that his father was trying to get Ghost off the streets. The story now starts to sound awfully similar to what Snaps and Pop have been doing with Kanan, pulling him further away from Rock. If Ghost was this kid who was a very good soldier for Kanan and Breeze, one of their best soldiers, and a soldier who was making them a lot of money, the story now starts to sound awfully similar. Ghost is being pulled further away from his parents by Breeze and Kanan. Snaps is controlling, liarizing, and manipulating him because he is an excellent investment. Ghost was being manipulated, lied to, and controlled in the same way by Kanan because Tommy and a young Ghost would have made excellent investments. It's clear to see why Kanan would have liked Ghost and Tommy so much. He would have perceived him in the same way that Pop and Snaps did. Kanan will think, these guys are going to be very good earners when he meets Ghost and Tommy. Similar to what Snaps and Pop did, he will put them on probation. Just like Snaps and Pop did with Kanan in Season 4, he will use them to fund himself. Similar to Snaps and Pop, he will not only direct them, but also simultaneously manipulate them. In regards to Ghost, I wouldn't be surprised if, like Snaps and Pop, Kanan and Breeze, or both of them, participated in the assassination of Ghost's father. After that, Kanan tells Ghost, like Snaps and Pop did, that Breeze was responsible for the incident. As a result, you can see that everything kind of reflects itself. We all have an understanding of Tommy's power character. Because of his complicated relationship with Kate, he always felt a sense of belonging when he was around people. That's something I expect to see in Power Origins, and I'm sure Kanan will pick it up. Just like Snaps and Pop did with Rock's relationship, he can benefit from it once more. Snaps and Pop have also introduced Breeze, their nephew, and one of Power's most enigmatic characters. It doesn't get much bigger than introducing Breeze to the world. Introducing Breeze to Kanan, who meets Tommy and a young James Saint later on. Patrick. Breeze was the one who gave James the nickname Ghost, so let's not forget that. When we were young, Breeze was someone we knew. Ghost was the name he chose. Because they hadn't introduced Kanan to Breeze, Snaps and Pop actually had an indirect role in Ghost getting his name. Imagine it as a family tree, with Snaps and Pop at the top, Kanan and Breeze at the bottom, and young Ghost and Tommy below them. Other characters in the area, like Unique and the Thomases, are also involved. We can go even further with Snaps and Pop's influence and manipulation. If Kanan and Breeze, Snaps and Pop, and possibly even Unique in Season 5 were Ghost's mentors, where did he learn to do what he did to Kanan? Take a look at Tariq's development throughout Power and Power Book 2. Ghost. He was also a manipulator of lies. Going one step further, we can talk about the cycle of betrayal and manipulation. Kanan manipulated Tariq against Ghost after Snaps, and Pop manipulated Kanan against Rock. Then, just as Kanan introduced Tariq to Jukebox, Ray, and others through Snaps and Pop, he mentored and guided him. But in this power family tree, to whom does everything date back? Pop and Snaps. That is their direct and indirect impact in manipulating Kanan and introducing him to Breeze. It sets off a chain reaction that resulted in many of the happenings in Power and Power Origins, as well as many more. If we were to watch Power again right now, we would see the entire tree that goes back to Snaps, Pop, Rock, the Thomases, and Unique. Mainly Snaps and Pop because of how they influenced Season 4 of the show. When it comes to shaping the most important characters in the Power universe, Kanan, Ghost and Tommy, one could argue that it all started with Rock in Season 1. However, Snaps and Pop are the two players who have had the greatest impact, particularly since the introduction of their nephew Breeze. They are the bosses who set the tone for Power's theme of ambition and betrayal. Now, some general predictions regarding where Kanan's story with Snaps and Pop will lead. They must be going to pay for manipulating Kanan, pulling him away from Rock, putting the hit on Fame, and killing Crystal, one would think. There is no way Kanan will not find out at some point. How does he learn? That could go in any number of directions. It is not worth speculating. However, the real question is, what will Kanan do once he learns? The fact that Breeze's aunt and uncle are Pop and Snaps complicates the situation. Would he permit Kanan to eliminate them, or does additional manipulation exist, a struggle for control? Season 5 may see a significant reorganization of the board to usher in a new era of Power origins. But how exactly does it work? Who initiates the action? When they find out, what will Lulu, Rock and the Thomases do? Examine what Sasha Penn had to say about the situation. I don't know if everyone has faith in them. I believe that people simply do not suspect them. When you're younger, you think you know everything and that the older people have left you alone. What the heck are they aware of? They are not harmful. Everyone sees Snaps and Pop as just two guys hanging out at their bar and restaurant. Rock has suspicions, but not to the point where they believe they are in charge. People may begin to view Snaps and Pop in different ways over time. They are undervalued by people. As a result, it's possible that Rock and other people will realize that Snaps and Pop are in charge. It would appear that they will all seek vengeance. Personally, I'd love to see the Thomas family unite in order to eliminate Pop and Snap. Bringing down two of the worst players would be a fitting moment because the Thomases have never really been united with a common goal or enemy. Who knows if it will happen or not? Given his relationship and partnership with Breeze, Kanan will need to navigate Snaps and Pop's downfall with care. It's important to remember that. However, in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter if you bring them down now. The harm has been done. When it comes to raising Kanan and shaping the Power world as a whole, their work is finished. Like Snaps and Pop did with him, Kanan already knows how to take advantage of trust and ambition. Kanan's teachings, which date back to Snaps and Pop, are the source of Ghost's calculated nature as well as his capacity to betray and double-cross people. They started a series of betrayals that define the Power universe as a whole. The chain from Snaps and Pop to Kanan, Ghost, Breeze and Tariq now makes sense. They have shaped the next phase of the Queen's drug trade, which will include Ghost and Tommy, by introducing Breeze and grooming Kanan. Additionally, we are aware of their legacy's effect on Power. Therefore, once more, it really doesn't matter what happens to them now. Power's Hall of Fame preserves their legacy. That is a breakdown of two of the greatest players ever created in the Power universe. Why and how they have had such an impact on the Power world as a whole. This, in my opinion, secures their place in the Power Hall of Fame for their influence. However, they must also acquire what is offered to them. That being said, I'll leave it to you to comment on Snaps and Pop's influence and how you see their story ending in raising Kanan and Power Origins. I'll see you again next time, and as always, thank you for watching.